Welcome everyone to More Than with your host, Kevin Carroll, in partnership with First Tech Federal Credit Union. And this program, the first to kick off the series, episode 1, we have a dynamic team, Buckets. And Grant and Phillip are going to share with you their inspiration, their love of hoops, and even more so, how they actually invest in passion, purpose, and intention. And so I want to welcome our guests, and we're going to get into this right off the jump. So Phillip and Grant, welcome to More Than.
Hey, happy to be here.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. It's a good day.
All right. It's a great day. Come on, we're going to talk about hoop hunting and all kind of crazy stuff. So I'm thrilled to be spending time with you all. And we're going to start off with just a little bit of like the origin story behind you all and your love of hoops, your connection and your relationship. And then we're going to move into the inspiration, the tactics, the strategy, what is exactly a hoop hunt, and how you invest your time and energy and creative passion into this project. So we good?
Yep.
Yeah.
Either one of you can start off like with the story of when you first were introduced to the game, or when you knew that it was something that you always wanted to be invested in and connected to.
My earliest memory of basketball was literally in my bedroom. Like, I had a big poster of Shaq. Shaq when he played for the Orlando Magic. And I can still visualize this poster. It was titled Future Shaq. It was like in front of like 2 power lines, like posting up. Shaq was actually my first introduction to Michael Jordan. Because I remember one day specifically going to my grandma's house, and they had the game on of the Bulls versus the Magic. And me, only knowing this one dude up on my wall, Shaq, I was like, Magic are gonna take this. And I remember my uncle being like, nah, the Magic aren't that good. The Magic aren't that good. I'm like, okay. I just remember the Magic losing. And that day was the day I became a Michael Jordan fan. And I'm like, okay, like,
oh,
I'm like, okay,
seriously?
Like, that's Michael Jordan.
It was Shaq all day, every day.
Exactly.
And that's Slim Shaq. That's Slim
that's
Shaq.
Slim
Folks
Shaq.
need to
Yeah,
know.
exactly.
That's Slim Shaq. That's not TNT Shaq.
Nah, that was
right?
Shaq. Yeah, Shaq on my wall. That was like skinny Shaq. That was like power forward / center Shaq. Yeah.
I love it. That's so. And Penny Hardaway was on that team also, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, they were like Kobe and Shaq before Kobe and Shaq. In a way.
Yeah.
Bar right there. They were Kobe Shaq before. Well played, Phillip. Well played. I like that. We're gonna give you a credit on that one. That was nice. That was a first, right? Or more than, right? The first bar. Right?
Yeah.
I love it. That's great. Grant, what's your story behind your love of basketball?
I'm the youngest in my family. My siblings are quite a bit older. So like my life growing up was going to their events, their friends coming over, us all hooping together. Like my childhood hoop is like hallowed territory for me. Because in my neighborhood, I lived in a cul-de-sac, and my hoop was the neighborhood hoop for like anyone who wanted to play. It wasn't competitive though. If you shot like this, or you might chuck the ball over your head, or you might actually have the nice form, everyone welcome, everyone's just playing. And it was all about just like, that was just fun for me. Cause for us, like, I mean, for both of us, I think the thing we share is like, it's not like we went to D1 schools and we're like big athletes. Like I come at it from the perspective of someone who loves the game and loves being active, and like that sort of like shared experience with like friends and family growing up. My dad was a PE teacher, so he expected me to know.
So you had no choice.
Yeah.
You had no choice. Yeah. He had a ball for everything, and you were going to learn the proper form. Yeah. So whatever the season, you probably could play the sport, I would imagine.
Yep.
Yeah. No, that's brilliant. I love that. I love that. So when we look at relationships, when we look at partnerships, if you will, how did this partnership between you two form? How did that happen?
We met just up, actually down the street from here at an old agency. I was an intern at, Phillip was a full-time designer at. And then we kind of didn't know each other too well.
No, we didn't even talk.
Yeah, barely talked really. Fast forward, I moved to Denver, came back, and we kind of like had kept in touch weirdly when we were apart, more so than when we were in person, and started to realize like both into basketball, both into hip hop, into a lot of the same things.
Mm-hmm.
Started eating lunch together, stuff like that. Started seeing each other's Instagrams, which, I mean, you could speak to, like, seeing hoops around town.
Exactly. Like, Grant was taking pictures of the hoops already on Instagram, just a little bit. Me as well. And then, those mutual interests just, like, overlapped. Grant does photography, videography. I do design. It was essentially like this
perfect fit.
It's organic, kind of like, hey, let's do something together. Let's collab, which ended up being this book.
Yeah, because I literally came to Philip and was like, he was making zines at the time.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, we should make a coffee table book together of these hoops. Like, it was essentially that direct. That's the thing. It really came from a place of passion.
And the fact that the two of you were doing that separate from each other, right? That you both had an interest in that specific subject, right? If you will, because maybe you just happened to see that you each were doing that on your IG. But the fact that like, hey, well, you do this and I do this, we should actually collide these and see if we can build, a little project together. Do a collab. Why not, right? And so I love the idea of when things happen organically like that, and then they become like they start to create their own momentum. Was there a moment when you guys were out in search of, well, you actually call them something very specific. What do you call it when you guys are going looking for the hoops?
Some hoop hunts. Yeah.
The hoop hunt.
Yeah.
TM. TM that.
Yep.
Yes. Hoop hunt.
We got
I love
website.
that. When you guys go and do your, yes, right? Yeah, lock that down, man. So when you guys do your hoop hunts and you're out there, was there one moment when you're out doing one that you both kind of looked at each other and said, I think we got something here? Can you remember or recall a moment like that?
In the beginning of 2019, around like March or so, I remember we went on a hunt for like maybe 3 hours driving and walking through Southeast Portland. And we must have found like 30 hoops that day and came away with like, I can't remember how many images, but we were like, what? Like, this is crazy. At the time we had maybe 60 hoops so far, and we just tripled it in a day. And we're just like, and this is neighborhoods we live close to. And we're like, man, if there are this many hoops in this area, imagine like, and this is just Portland, right? I mean, we're still thinking pretty local, pretty small. And like, imagine what we could do with this. Like if this is the starting point right now.
I can think of moments where I was already designing the book in my head as we were finding these new hoops as well. It's like, okay, like this new hoop right here, that could pair really well with the hoop we got like last week on the same spread in the book. And just like starting to make these patterns with the more hoops that we found day by day, or with every hoop hunt, just connecting those lines.
Almost like, building the plane as you're flying it, building the book as you're taking these pictures. Was that from your zine background? Was that from having that, or was it just kind of an innate thing that was coming out of you?
No, it was just like natural. It's just like, okay, like, I mean, a lot of these hoops in a way remind myself of ones we found in the past, but also ones of my childhood too. So just like, it's essentially, just drawing these lines and these connections and these patterns through memory as well. I guess like, that's essentially like what the project is like, making light of the mundane in a way. And in a way, finding these connections through, I guess, essentially like, in a way, you could just describe it just a hoop, just a basketball hoop, like on the telephone pole in front of someone's house. But it's just like, when you start making these connections in general, it's just like, it makes it so much more interesting, whether it be through color, whether it be through
shape, texture.
Exactly.
We were just talking about this today. I have all of our old prototypes of the book just at my house. And I remember those early ones. It's just like 200 images of the hoop. And it's like, and we're like judging fit. And like Philip's like, maybe it should be 9x9, or like, okay, starting to find patterns even physically early on. So it wasn't even just happening digitally. Like it was sort of just this ongoing work in progress from pretty early stage.
Taking the mundane and making it magical, right? Something that others might just walk by and not even give a second look or a second glance to. You all saw the magic in it. You all saw the beauty of it. Like you're identifying it. And the fact that you decide to make this book and then how it's going to be shaped, and we're going to look at color, patterns, all these things. But there also comes a point where, okay, well, how are we going to make this? Like, where are we going to get the money for this? How are we actually going to produce this? How do you get to that place? How do you decide how you're going to create the deliverable item and how are you going to fund that?
Yeah, like essentially, like Grant and I, when we were first talking about this, we're like, okay, like this just needs to exist just for us. Like that would
Wait, 2 copies.
Yeah,
one for you, one for me.
So we just wanted it to exist. It was essentially a gamble on ourselves of like, it's almost looking at it from a win-win perspective. Like it's a win that it exists and at least we get a book out of it. But it's also a win if it takes off. If we sell 100 books, 200 books, 300 books, or whatever.
Because we did this without an audience. So like we didn't go public with like even an Instagram sharing a single hoop until the book was like nearing completion.
The start date was 2017 for the project, right?
Yep.
And the Instagram, which now is our main promotional thing, that didn't even come out till February of 2020.
Wow.
We had already shot 300 hoops by then.
We're just sitting on it.
You had shot how many by then? 300, you said?
Yeah. 300 by then, yeah.
And that's only in the state of Oregon.
Just Portland.
Just Portland.
Just Portland?
Just Portland.
Portland
So,
proper, not even Metro.
Seriously,
Yeah.
Portland proper, the city.
Yep.
So why do you think there's so many hoops in Portland? Did you ever stop to think about that?
Yeah.
We did, because I mean, if we're going at like the very top level reason, this city loves basketball, and our main sport like throughout time is, I mean, it's been basketball through the Blazers.
Exactly. Like we don't have a football team here. Don't have a baseball team. It's just
Yeah, we have the Timbers, but I mean, they came and went at different times.
Yes.
Exactly.
Basketball is the through line. Like people here, it goes back to what we were saying earlier. Like you might not even know much about basketball, but you love going to the Blazer games.
Mm-hmm.
You might not know how to shoot a basketball, but you might love shooting hoops with your friends at their hoop. It's like that same thing. So you just see them everywhere. It's just like a social thing, right? It's like going to a bar or something.
Think about all the covered basketball courts we have here. We have amazing, like some of them are so unique. And just tucked away, you wouldn't even know they're there unless you know. Do you take your monies and put into that and start to find a way to produce it? How do you go about that? Because I think, some of the folks watching this are going to be wondering, I have an idea. But maybe it only stays an idea. How do I actually manifest it? How do I get it beyond just an idea to produce it?
I think it is interesting to note. So we actually put the funding and did all the business steps while the pandemic had just hit. So I've never thought about it like this, but for us, like we just went from being able to spend a lot of time together, creating in person a lot. Now we're doing so remotely, trying to figure it out. For me, I'm freelance, so I lost the main source of my income for a while because events weren't happening, things like that, doing videos. And for Philip, like we're both working remotely, trying to figure this out. But it's like we self-funded from the start.
I feel like the hardest hurdle of actually doing something is to actually do it, right? Like everyone can just have an idea. But I think working with Grant, what was great was that, I don't think we ever spoke about this, but I feel like there was always pressure in terms of like, I wanted to do this for Grant as well, because we both talked about how we wanted this project to exist. So it's almost like this unspoken pressure of like, I want it to exist. I know Grant wants it to exist to the point where it's just like, it has to happen.
And I think that's great that mutual agreement without ever putting it in writing. It was just a sense that you had between the two of you that this has to happen. But you said something, Philip, that was really interesting, but it has to be done well. It has to be done right. So I think what you said was really, really loud. We both felt a good pressure, right? There's distress and there's eustress. Eustress is positive stress, good stress. So we felt that good stress, and we also wanted to do it well.
Also the pressure of like, we spent 3+ years of like taking pictures of basketball hoops. Like we're not gonna put that to waste.
Yeah, our friends knew. If we came with something bogus, they'd be like, what is this?
You just wasted 3+ years. Wasted 3 years.
Oh, this is gonna be nice.
Yeah. So it's like,
I thought this was gonna be, this is what you've been working on for 3.5 years?
Right? Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, but really, yeah.
I have to tell you, when I got my copy, and I didn't even crack it open right away. I was just so intrigued by the packaging and the texture. And so I almost didn't want to break the seal. It felt so precious. Then when I cracked it open, I wanted to make sure I opened it really like specifically and gently, because I didn't want to, like, is there something in there that I might mess up by cracking it open too fast?
Yeah.
So you had me at packaging, right? Like it's like you had me at packaging. So I knew whatever was inside there was going to either meet or exceed this, because there's no way you were going to put that much detail in the packaging and the inside wasn't going to be spectacular in some way.
Exactly.
I always think about, where do you learn that? Like, where do you learn that art? Is there someone or something that influenced that? Because both of you are very meticulous in a way. Grant, you and I got a chance to work on a project together. And so I got to know you through a project, right? And so I watched your level of detail, the amount of energy and investment that you put into something. And Phillip, I got to know you, but now I understand even more so. You both share that, right? You share that level of creative investment and intention around design. But do you have like a story or someone that influenced that or helped you to kind of understand those sensibilities and value that?
Being an experienced designer full time, like that's like my regular day job. Just thinking about when you first discover something from the beginning, and then the layers to that up until the end. Just thinking through every step. I guess like in regards to the packaging, like I wanted the packaging to be the hook. You know what I mean? In terms of like, okay, like basically your reaction, Kevin. Yeah. I'm like, oh, what is this? Like, this is wild. This is, you can argue that it's a little extra, the packaging, but
you cut the net.
Right.
Oh, snap. I never noticed that. That's right. You cut the net.
Yeah.
Now you just blew my mind a little bit, because now I'm remembering opening, but I didn't think of that.
Yeah, and that was done with intent, because that was more so in a way for us, because it was a celebration that the
product
book
was here.
The book was finally
Yes.
done. And when you cut the net in
I love
college
that.
basketball, you celebrate
That's
a win.
brilliant. Yeah, that's like your trophy, like the championship.
Exactly.
People are cutting the net, sharing their experience, and for us, it was amazing to see, because we had just worked on this forever. Books barely came on time.
Yep.
And then we kind of redid the process of going around the neighborhoods, like the neighborhoods we got the hoops in, to now deliver the book to these people who are going to know the hoops. It was just like the most rad, like full circle thing. And it all goes back to the design that the cut the net experience Phillip created. It was like a celebration at that point.
Yep.
It's interesting though, Phillip, you live in the world of experience design. Grant, do you have something that, from a photography standpoint, something you can remember that really was influential for you?
I've done full-time photo and video work since like I was 18. So I don't really know. I've rarely had other jobs. It's like all I know. And for the opportunity to work with Phillip, I mean, in most ways, we're talking about good pressure. That was a huge opportunity for me, because for my work, it's almost all digital. So, I mean, I had rarely seen a photo I've taken printed out. Like I didn't go the film photography route. I most of my stuff was just living in the digital space. So for me, it was like an opportunity to actually get better and learn about how to edit the photo in a certain way to make it pop on print. How to like take the risk of, I barely printed my photos. We're about to print a whole coffee table book, and we didn't even get a sample ahead of time. We just had to go for it.
Oh, we could have, but we're just
we didn't have time.
Yeah, we didn't have time.
Yeah, so making time, so investing and making time for, I think there's something to be said for this idea of more of the low tech, high touch, right? That idea, right? What you're talking about, I think is really important, because you're living and working constantly in this digital world. So having something tactile, right? Being able to produce something.
I'm used to this digital space. I want to do something physical. I don't want to take the things I'm good at from that world and see how that translates into this thing I frankly didn't know anything about. And also just being around Phillip, I mean, he's teaching me things all the time. Like he's really taught me to sort of like slow down even more and become a lot more meticulous. Whereas sometimes, especially being a freelancer, I might just be going. And I mean, especially with video work, sometimes it's just, you're just boom, boom, boom. And sort of slow down, think about the process, like really dive into the details. And photos absolutely make you do that. I mean, we're talking 30 frames per second versus 1, right? You're like, okay, I'm honing in on the image. I might re-edit the same one 5 times before it feels right. So
I will say on the flip side of that too, I'm for myself, I'm known for working slow and overthinking things. Whereas I felt like because of Grant's energy or his perspective on that, of being boom, 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 working fast, that made me be a quicker decision maker.
So time, you both actually would equally say that was the thing, what was the thing that you would invest in that actually outside of just this project that really helped inform it was time and slowing down, right? And I think there's something really wonderful about making room for something and giving yourself permission to have time to do it, but also carving out time to do it. A lot of folks won't carve out the time because they'll always convince themselves they don't have time.
Exactly, but everyone lives a 24-hour day.
We all have, I think, these anecdotes or things that stick with us when we're in the midst of a project or we're working on something that really matters to us. And we might bump up against an obstacle. We might bump up against some adversity. Is there a phrase or something that you always lean on or tap into when you might be up against something or facing a challenge?
I guess like this quote, it came from my uncle, one of my uncles, and it still sticks to me to this day. I guess like it also relates to buckets too. He said, "It's one thing to be humble, but it's another thing to get humbled." And that stuck with me because
2 bars.
I know,
two
right?
bars.
Yeah. That's his bar though. I can't take credit for that.
Yes.
But that resonated with me, especially with buckets, because to get humble, you have to make yourself vulnerable, and with that, to get humble comes some sort of adversity or some kind of failure. So, but at the same time, you're not above learning from that experience, you know what I mean, to get humbled. And then me, I guess like drawing that line between being humbled and getting humbled, because I always define myself as being like a very modest and humble guy. So that's where that bar came from my uncle. He's like, it's one thing to be humble, but it's another thing to get humbled. So it's just like,
I love that.
Not being afraid of failure. I mean, that's a cliche, of course, right? But at the same time, also got to live it as well. That's the hardest thing. So I guess like even in relation to buckets, like taking the risk of making this book, like we literally gambled on ourselves, taking that risk.
You were willing to do 2 books.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And taking that L, but at the same time, it's not really an L because like.
Yeah, it's not an L, right? Well, Samuel Beckett has a beautiful, ever tried, ever failed, no matter. Try again, fail better.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Exactly.
So I think that's really a great insight. Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Grant, do you have like a phrase or a mantra or advice that you lean on when you're dealing with in respect to buckets or life?
Yeah, for me, it's simple. It's just, it's similar, little different, but just leaning into the unknown and trying to take essentially the harder path, because the results you get will be far beyond what you'd hope for. And that is the case here with what we've created today. We just kind of went for it without really knowing if it would sell, or we didn't do pre-orders before we ordered it. I mean, it was like 5 months later.
We go back to that idea of betting on yourself, that willingness to bet on yourself, but also to recognize surrounding yourself with the right people.
People are sending us hoops. We're saving hoops.
TM that too. Hoop that.
When that thing's piling up and we see a cluster though, it's like, okay, we gotta go.
So you're looking at the negative space, if you will, right? Like, wait, there's a gap there. There has to be something in there. So it's almost like, it's looking for Bigfoot. Like you gotta find that.
Right.
There's gotta be a good hoop in that area, in that neighborhood. Is that the way you all think?
No, that literally is
exactly it.
Yeah, it's like, okay, like we already X out that part of the town.
Good deal.
In certain parts of town, there might not be a cluster, but that's because we've gone there several times and there's just not super interesting ones. There might be hoops, but it's kind of like, like they're mid. They're just like normal looking.
Yeah.
When you start to think about an idea, when you have a potential project, when you have the inspiration, when something has sparked you, take action. I think that's really important. But I think also too, we can't do it alone. So collaborators are really important. Partnerships are really important. And having an equal level of investment in the idea, but also it can be unique in why we're both doing it, so that like you all too, you have different points of motivation around it, but they sync up. I'm thrilled that we got an opportunity to interview Grant and Phillip from Buckets. And we're going to continue with a little bit of magic around a hoop hunt. So stay tuned. What's going on? What's going on? You good? Listen, hoop hunt.
Good, bro.
So, I know we're in Southeast PDF at this park. Is there significance about this park?
Yeah, so this hoop in particular, last year it was all boarded up because of COVID.
That's the actual
net,
angle.
net was gone.
The planks.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And so that was all blocked. There was no net or anything.
No, nothing. No, you couldn't play it here at all.
You couldn't play here at all.
Nah.
But you all were here with the possibility around buckets.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I feel like us looking at this picture right now and then looking here, it's like we captured a moment in time. Like, that's basically the story of buckets. Like, there are so many hoops in the book that don't even exist today.
They're not even around anymore.
People move. I remember a specific one a mile from here. It had stars on the backboard. Remember me telling you about this?
Yeah.
I went back to get it. New people are moving in. The hoop is gone. I was like, why'd I wait a couple weeks?
Sometimes you have to, once again, take a risk. That I want to come back. It's not perfect. We just identified it, but we didn't have everything we wanted, or the light wasn't right. There's some that aren't even around.
Oh, literally. Yeah.
It actually happened quite often.
Like, there's one out in North Portland. We're going back there to do a video of it, and Grant pulls up. It's gone. Like, literally, like the place
building
was
is
still
actually
for sale.
Oh!
Yeah,
It's different
gone.
color
Yeah.
and everything's different. I'm like, I think it was a break, like where the employees would like have their breaks, and we're like, this is dang, like, and it lives on as a card that comes with the book. Like, one of the hoops that we put on our cards with the book is
Was
that hoop.
Like, we are essentially, like, I feel like we're capturing a moment in time, right? We're documenting all this, and it's just like having that risk and losing out from going back to these hoops and it not being there. Like, we don't want that anymore.
It's kind of it is fleeting.
It is fleeting,
and random
right?
things will take it out. So
I just think that's crazy. Oh yeah, we'll come back, and then wait, there's a for sale sign, and the hoop is gone. Believe me, it was there. I'm telling you.
like, okay, yeah, sure.
What an amazing first episode, right? For More Than, because this was more than I anticipated, was more than I could have hoped for, and you know, I just think that what you all are about is going to really affect a lot of people in a positive way. The inspo you're going to be sharing is really, truly catalyzing. And I'm so proud to know you guys. I know our chance meeting has turned into something even greater.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're at a court. We might
Get
as well
after it.
shoot some buckets. We're out. More Than. Be well. Godspeed. Peace and play. First Tech Federal Credit Union. Love me some First Tech. Partners in crime and hoops.